Hey everybody, how you guys doing tonight? I hope that all is well, that you're staying warm, that you're not wet or cold, and that you're not sick. Because I know how it feels to be sick and also improving. So just wishing you guys the best. Um, Tonight I'm here to talk about the Oxford mass shooter. Parents more so focused on his mother, Jennifer Crumbley. So the Oxford mass shooter, Ethan Crumbley, um, he had his sentencing back in December of 2023. He's going to be in prison life without parole. And now his parents' trials are up. They decided at some point they were working together. They had two separate attorneys, but they were working together. But at some point, there was a conflict of interest that arose, which I pretty much felt from the beginning because there was more evidence on Jennifer Crumbley. I did not think that it was a good idea to try them together because if you try them together, they really can't um, attack it individually because one person could be exposed depending on what evidence is presented, and one person could look less guilty. So I'm glad that the cases have split just out of fairness because I believe that there's more evidence that's negative towards Jennifer Crumbley than James Crumbley. There was more actions, there was more text, there was more communication between herself and her son Ethan, and I believe that she may get possibly a harsher sentencing and maybe even harsher charges due to her involvement versus possibly James Crumbley, because we really don't know all of those details where he was the actor. We know a lot about Jennifer Crumbley's actions, but James Crumbley, not so much, particularly because you're trying to demonstrate a pattern of neglect, a pattern of abuse, a pattern of wrongful decisions. Um, and I think you have to look at each person individually for that. So I'm very glad that the cases are split and they're being tried separately. That is, to me, a fair approach, particularly if both people do not have the same level of involvement, in my opinion. Now, I want to come on today just to kind of give you a case update on what's going on. Jennifer's case is up first. So, Mrs. Crumbley is right now going through the jury selection process. And again, I just want to give you an update because this is really a historical case. This is the first time in the United States that the parents of the mass shooter in a shooting incident where multiple people are unalive, injured, where they're trying and bringing charges to the parents. So I want to focus on two articles. They're both posted on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. The first article is from WXYZ.com. The article is dated January 22nd, 2024, and the author is Simon Shakek. Apologize if I did not pronounce that properly. And it's titled Jury Selection to Begin for Jennifer Crumbley, Mom of Oxford High School Shooter. As the Oxford High School shooter is in prison serving life without parole, two separate trials against his parents will take center stage. In the tragic event in November 2021, four students were shot and unalive, and others were wounded. The beginning of jury selection for the trial of Jennifer Crumbley will take place on Tuesday. The mother of the Oxford shooter is being tried separately from her husband for involuntary manslaughter. The second layer of accountability is absolutely 100% the parents. What they didn't do leading up to the shooting or day of the shooting, how they didn't support their son or seek mental health treatment for their son, parent Linda Watson said. Her son was shot by the gunman and survived. Prosecutors say the entire tragedy could have been avoided if the parents didn't buy the GUN. Parents do need to be responsible for their children and do need to act and come before their children when there are so many signs leading up to this, Watson said. In this case, prosecutors must prove gross negligence and the fact the shooter's cries for help made the tragedy foreseeable. It's all about the facts. There are questions that still need answers. We're over 2 years without those answers, Watson said. Legal experts nationwide are expected to watch the trials closely as they're likely to have far reaching implications for how future school shooter cases are handled by prosecutors. For Watson, there are large implications as well. I hope this case is precedent setting. Perhaps that will go a small way or big way into preventing something like this, she said. As the case moved forward, both sides remain bound by a gag order. Getting justice is so needed for all of us. This is huge. The damage the shooter and his family did to families of Oxford, four families and those injured, 1,800 students and their families, teachers, and administrators. I don't think people fully understand, says Watson. Jury selection is expected to last up to a week. Families plan to keep close watch on this trial and the trial of James Crumbley beginning March 5th. James Crumbley is Ethan Crumbley's dad. Again, okay? So I want to just go to one more additional article, also on WXYZ.com, written by Ross Jones. It's dated January 19th, 2024, and the title of the article is Oxford Shooters Parents' Unprecedented Trials Could Have Far-Reaching Implications. 2 years since unprecedented involuntary manslaughter charges were announced against them, the parents of the Oxford high school shooter are preparing to go to trial. James and Jennifer Crumbley each face up to 60 years in prison for failing to stop their son, Ethan, from unaliving four of his classmates. Legal experts nationwide are expected to watch the trials closely as they're likely to have far-reaching implications for how future school shooter cases are handled by prosecutors. It's just such a terrifying thought as a parent, and I think that probably consciously or subconsciously fuels Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald in bringing these charges, said attorney Michael Bellata. For 23 years, Bellata was a federal prosecutor in Detroit and Los Angeles. Today, he's a criminal defense attorney. Would you rather defend this case or prosecute it? Asked Channel 7's Ross Jones. It's such a tough case, Bellata said. I certainly don't think I'd want to prosecute it. The parents did contribute to this, but did they cause the death? Key evidence in the trials is expected to include how Ethan's parents secured the GUN he later used to commit the mass shooting along with his cries for help. By charging each parent with involuntary manslaughter, the prosecution needs to prove two things. First, that the Crumbleys were grossly negligent meaning they knew about the dangers posed by allowing their son access to a GUN. And second, that the GUN, coupled with Ethan's cries for help, made the Oxford shooting a foreseeable tragedy. I think the jury's first reaction is going to be, wow, I'm on this case where these four children died. It's incredibly tragic, it's unspeakable, it's unimaginable, Balata said. But if it's unimaginable, if it's so tragic and so horrible and unusual, how can it be foreseeable? While involuntary manslaughter charges are unprecedented in a case like this, there have been recent examples where parents of shooters have faced prosecution. Last year, a 6-year-old Virginia boy shot his teacher using his mother's GUN. She was charged with using marijuana while possessing a firearm and in November was sentenced to 21 months in prison. That same month, the father of an Illinois man pleaded guilty to 7 misdemeanor charges of reckless conduct after he helped his son obtain a GUN that he later used to unalive 7 people. He was sentenced to 60 days in jail. When the case begins on January 23rd, the first order of business will be selecting a jury, a process that could take several days or longer, given the case's high profile nature. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get a fair trial in Oakland County, given all the pre-trial publicity, says Mike Rataj, a criminal defense attorney. Rataj is surprised the case wasn't moved outside of Metro Detroit, where the case received less media attention. In the court of public opinion, these people are guilty, Rataj said, and what people need to keep in mind is that the Crumbleys are presumed to be innocent. At least some of the key evidence to be introduced at trial is already known. This week, Judge Cheryl Matthews ruled to allow video from inside the school that day, along with the testimony of a teacher who was shot, an assistant principal who talked to Ethan before his arrest, and a witness to one of the 4 murders. When the first trial begins on Tuesday, the case will have the attention of lawyers nationwide. And I think this is why they decided to do Jennifer Crumbley's case before Mr. James Crumbley. I think the case against Jennifer Crumbley, mom, is stronger, in my opinion. The verdict, if there is one, will influence how school shooting cases are charged going forward. This is a prime example of a case that could result in a mistrial, Bellato said. There probably will be some jurors saying this is so horrible. These parents are terrible. They need to be held accountable. And then there's other jurors who say, hey, I'm a parent. I don't want to be responsible for the actions of my children. Okay, so that's the article. That's just a quick update. I have multiple videos about both James and Jennifer Crumbley. Overall, how I feel about them being prosecuted, how I feel that they are responsible for that charge of involuntary manslaughter, more so Jennifer Crumbley, because there's just so much evidence about her actions. James Crumbley, I would like to follow the trial a little bit more when it starts in March, because I don't know how much he knew and how involved he was. However, I'm very open to hearing all of the evidence in both cases, but more so Mr. Crumbley's case, because I honestly didn't feel that trying him for the involuntary manslaughter was as strong as Jennifer's case. they may have to get him, offer him maybe even something like negligence, much lower charges, because I don't know if they have as much evidence, as many examples of the neglect of their son Ethan. So I'm just looking forward to following the case, hearing about the progress, and hearing the verdicts too. I don't think this is going to be a case that's drawn out. I think they could probably have a trial and verdict within the next 2 months. So we will see, right? We will see. So just keep following along with me. And at first, hit is going to be for Jennifer Crumbley, her prosecution, and then James Crumbley starting in March. So thanks for checking out this video. Remember, always stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, okay? See you soon, my friends. Bye, everybody.